Okay, so, you sent us this NASA article.
Uh,
What is climate change? And you really want to, get to the meat of it. Like,
yeah,
what are the big takeaways here?
for sure.
Without, getting
Yeah.
super bogged down.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do today.
Right.
We are going to try to, break down, what NASA is saying climate change actually is
Okay.
and how that differs from some of these other terms that get thrown around,
Right.
global warming,
Yep.
and even just,
The weather.
the weather.
Exactly.
Right. So this NASA piece, it really does lay out, definitions.
Mhm.
It talks about the evidence that they've gathered.
It's a great resource.
It talks about, what are the main drivers and how they actually track all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's what we're going to dive into.
let's unpack it.
Yeah, it's a smart move to start with NASA.
Okay.
They really do give a very clear foundational understanding. And what I think is really fascinating is at the core of it,
Yeah.
their definition of climate change is that it's a long-term change in the average weather patterns
Mm-hmm.
that define local, regional, and global climates.
Right. So not just a blip on the radar.
Exactly. Not a blip, not just it was a hot summer,
Yeah. Right.
or a cold winter.
Yeah.
This is a significant long-term
Mm-hmm.
alteration in the conditions that we've relied on for millennia.
Right.
And it's affecting everything from
Yeah.
our ability to grow food to the ecosystems that support life.
Right.
And so I think an early insight here is that,
Okay.
it's not just that the planet's getting a fever or something. It's a fundamental destabilization
Right.
of the environmental conditions that we've come to rely on.
Yeah, and they talk about these observed effects.
Yes.
And they don't give us this whole laundry list right off the bat,
Thankfully.
which I think is good.
Right.
It makes you want to keep reading.
It keeps you intrigued.
Yeah, exactly. But they do talk about
Right.
what has been causing these shifts
Yeah.
since the mid-20th century.
Exactly.
And they're pretty upfront about it. They say it's human activities.
It's unmistakable.
Yeah, no beating around the bush there.
The scientific consensus, which NASA really reflects,
Yeah.
is very clear on this.
Okay.
And they point specifically to the burning of fossil fuels
Mm-hmm.
as the primary engine of this change.
Right, so that's coal, oil, natural gas.
Exactly. All of those things.
Okay.
When we burn those,
Yeah.
we're essentially pumping huge amounts of heat-trapping greenhouse gases
Okay.
into the atmosphere.
Okay.
So if you think about it kind of like wrapping the Earth in a thicker blanket,
Okay.
these gases are acting like that extra layer,
Yeah.
trapping heat that would otherwise escape into space.
Right.
And the direct result is that the Earth's average surface temperature increases over the long term.
Okay. So that makes sense. And to be fair, NASA does mention
Yeah.
it's not all our fault.
Yeah.
There are these natural processes that have always
Of
been
course.
happening that shape the climate too.
Absolutely. The Earth's climate system
Yeah.
has its own internal rhythms,
Okay.
and it can be influenced by external forces as well.
Okay. So what kind of things are we talking about here?
So, things like El Nino and La Nina,
Okay.
those are natural variations in the ocean and atmosphere that cause those short-term shifts in weather patterns.
Right.
You've got major volcanic eruptions
Oh, okay.
that can inject particles into the stratosphere and temporarily cool the planet.
Interesting.
And then even subtle variations in the Earth's orbit
Okay.
over very long time scales can influence how much solar radiation we get.
Okay. So these are all
All part of the natural system.
part of the natural ebb and flow.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is a key takeaway here.
Okay.
What NASA really emphasizes is that the sheer scale and the speed of the changes we've seen since the mid-20th century
Yeah.
are way beyond what these natural factors can explain.
Okay.
So the human influence on the climate
Mm-hmm.
has become the overwhelmingly dominant driver
Got it.
in this current chapter of Earth's climate story.
Okay, so how do scientists at NASA and across the globe really, know this is happening?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How can they be so sure?
It's not just a hunch.
Right.
NASA outlines a very robust scientific approach.
Okay.
And it relies on this incredible array of observations.
Okay.
Everything from instruments on the ground tracking temperatures
Yeah.
and precipitation. You've got aircraft measuring atmospheric composition.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, satellites providing a global view of our planet from space.
Right, so they're getting data from all these different
Everywhere.
sources.
Yeah, everywhere, all these different sources.
Okay.
And then all of those observations are fed into sophisticated computer models that simulate the Earth's climate system.
Wow.
And those models help them not only to understand past changes, but also to project potential future scenarios as well.
So they can kind of like look back in time.
Exactly. Look back and look forward.
And also like game out what might happen.
Precisely.
Okay, that's really cool.
It's amazing technology.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
NASA and other institutions maintain what are called climate data records.
Okay.
So think of these as long-term,
Okay.
meticulously compiled data sets that provide tangible evidence of the key signs of a changing climate.
So like hard data.
Hard data.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
And they give some really clear examples in this article of what these like, key signs are.
They do.
You know, things that we can actually point to and be like, right, there's the evidence.
Exactly.
So like, what are some of those?
So some of the most compelling indicators that they highlight are, first of all, you've got a consistent and undeniable rise in global land and ocean temperature.
And it's actually getting hotter.
It is getting hotter.
Okay.
Sea levels are climbing as well.
Right.
Which, of course, has profound implications for coastal communities around the world.
For sure.
There's a clear and accelerating loss of ice,
Oh, wow.
both at the poles
Yeah.
and in mountain glaciers.
Okay.
And then you've got these significant shifts in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events.
Oh, okay.
So things like
So like what kind of things?
more powerful hurricanes,
Okay.
more frequent and longer-lasting heat waves,
Yeah.
increased risk of wildfires,
Right.
more severe and prolonged droughts.
It seems like we're seeing all of that.
Yeah, and then more intense rainfall leading to floods.
Wow. So like everything is getting more
More extreme, more intense.
extreme.
Exactly. And it's not just these big dramatic events either.
Okay.
Even subtle changes in things like cloud cover and vegetation patterns
But
across the globe are being documented.
so they're really tracking all this stuff.
All of it. They're tracking all of it.
Okay.
And the key here is that these aren't just isolated incidents. They're all interconnected.
Yeah.
They're like threads in this larger tapestry of change.
So it's not just like one thing happening in one place.
Exactly. It's all
All
connected.
tied together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about something
Yeah.
that I know trips a lot of people up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it trips me up too,
Yeah.
which is like the difference between climate change
Yes.
and global warming.
Right.
Right. Because people use those terms.
Interchangeably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But NASA points out
They do.
that they are actually different.
They are distinct.
Yeah. So what's like the core difference that we should understand?
So according to NASA,
Yeah.
global warming refers specifically
Okay.
to the long-term increase in Earth's surface temperature
Okay.
that we've observed since the pre-industrial era,
Oh.
which is roughly between 1850 and 1900.
Okay. Got it.
And they're very clear in this article that the primary driver of that warming is human activities,
Okay.
mainly the burning of fossil fuels,
Right.
which, as we talked about, increases the concentration of heat-trapping gases
Okay.
in the atmosphere.
Okay.
So global warming is a significant aspect of climate change.
Yeah.
It's a key symptom.
Okay.
But climate change itself is broader.
Got it.
It encompasses not just rising temperatures, but also all these other interconnected changes,
Yeah.
like those shifts in precipitation patterns, the
Yeah.
melting ice,
Right.
changes in ocean currents.
Okay. So is it fair to say that like
Yeah,
if global warming is the Earth getting hotter,
yeah.
then climate change is all the dominoes that start to fall
I love that.
because of that heat?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, global warming is the initial push.
Yeah.
And climate change is the cascade of effects that follows.
Yeah.
It impacts all these different aspects of the Earth's system.
Right. So global warming is a key symptom, but climate change is like the more comprehensive diagnosis.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this article also really hammers home
It does.
the urgency of this warming trend.
Yeah.
And they give us some
They do.
pretty sobering numbers.
Yeah. Some stark numbers.
Yes. So what are we looking at here?
So they estimate that since the pre-industrial period, human activities have already caused Earth's average temperature to increase by about 1 degree Celsius,
Okay.
which is 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit.
And that doesn't sound like a lot.
Right, doesn't sound like a lot,
Right.
but it is when you consider the scale of the planet.
Yeah.
And what's even more striking is the rate at which it's increasing.
Okay.
Right now, it's more than 0.2 degrees Celsius
Mhm.
or 0.36 degrees Fahrenheit
Okay.
per decade.
Per decade.
So that means every 10 years,
Yeah.
the planet's average temperature is going up by that much.
And this is all because of us. And the article is very clear about this.
Yeah.
This current warming trend
Yeah.
is directly attributable to human activity since the 1950s.
Wow.
And it's happening at a pace that is completely unprecedented in thousands of years.
So like never before in history.
Exactly. We've never seen anything like this.
Has the planet warmed up this fast?
Yeah, and that's really what should give us pause.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just that it's warming, it's the speed at which it's happening.
That's really like the big takeaway.
That's a huge red flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another area where I think it's easy to get confused
Yeah.
is the difference between weather and climate.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And we've all heard the saying,
Mm-hmm.
NASA even quotes Mark Twain here.
Right.
If you don't like the weather in New England, just wait a few minutes.
Classic Mark Twain.
Yeah. So how does that kind of like lighthearted
Yeah.
observation
Right.
connect to this more serious long-term concept of climate?
Well, the Mark Twain quote is perfect because it really illustrates the short-term variability of weather.
Okay.
You know, so weather, as NASA defines it,
Yeah.
refers to those atmospheric conditions that we experience locally over relatively short periods, from minutes to hours to days.
So like if it's raining or snowing or
Exactly. If it's sunny or cloudy,
windy,
or
right.
if there's like a flood or a thunderstorm.
All of those things.
That's all weather.
That's all weather.
Okay.
It's what dictates whether you grab an umbrella or sunglasses when you go outside.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like
We
what
use
you see when
us.
you look out your window.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now contrast that with climate.
Okay.
So climate refers to the long-term averages
Okay.
of those daily weather patterns.
Right.
So things like temperature, humidity, and rainfall
Yeah.
over a significant period of time.
Like how long were we talking?
Typically, at least 30 years.
Okay.
And across a region, which could be as small as your hometown.
Right. Or as large as the entire globe.
Okay, so it's like a much bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay,
So while the weather might change from day to day,
right.
the climate represents the overall prevailing conditions and trends over decades.
Okay, so it's like you might have a
Right.
really cold winter
You might.
in a place that's generally
Right.
warming up.
Exactly.
Right.
That cold winter is a weather event.
Okay,
But the overall warming trend is a shift in climate.
got it.
So think of it this way.
Okay,
Weather is your daily outfit choice.
okay.
Climate is your entire wardrobe
I like that.
over decades.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this NASA article, it really feels like an intro to a much bigger
Yeah,
conversation.
totally.
Right, and just looking at their website,
Yeah.
they have tons more information on this.
So much information.
Yeah. So where are some places that people can go?
Well, they've organized their website really well.
Okay.
As you said, they have a whole section on evidence,
Mhm.
which presents all the data and observations supporting the reality of climate change.
Okay.
They have a section on causes,
Yeah.
which delves into both human and natural factors in a lot more detail.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a section on effects,
Yeah.
which outlines the wide range of potential consequences
Right.
that we're already seeing and can expect in the future.
Right.
And then for people who are more visual learners,
Yeah.
I think the vital signs section is really cool.
Okay.
It has these interactive graphs and animations
Okay.
showing real-time data.
So it's not just like a static page.
No, it's very dynamic,
It's interactive.
very engaging.
Cool.
Yeah.
And they have some other ways for people to learn about this too.
Oh, yeah. They have a bunch of different resources.
Yeah, that aren't just like reading articles.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what else do they have?
So they have this great video series called Earth Minute,
Okay.
which are these short little videos
Okay.
explaining different earth science topics, including different aspects of climate change.
Okay, cool.
The Goddard Scientific Visualization Studio.
That's a mouthful.
It is,
Okay.
but it's a fantastic resource.
Okay.
They have this huge collection of animations
Okay.
that really bring complex climate data to life visually.
So like if you're someone who learns by seeing things,
Exactly.
this is a good place to go.
That's the place to go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then if you're interested in specific areas,
Okay.
like sea level rise, for example,
Mm-hmm.
their sea level change portal provides a ton of in-depth information.
Wow. So they really do have like a whole
They have everything.
universe
A whole climate change
of
universe.
information on this.
Yeah. If you want to learn about it,
That's amazing.
they've got it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So to sum it all up
Yeah.
for you, our listener,
Right.
based on this NASA article,
Uh-huh.
what are the big things you should take away from this?
Well, I think the core understanding here is this. Climate change is a significant and lasting shift in global weather patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And the overwhelming evidence shows that human activities,
Yeah.
particularly the burning of fossil fuels,
Mm-hmm.
are the primary driver.
Got it.
And we have to remember that it's important to distinguish this from weather,
Right.
which is that short-term variability that we experience.
Yeah, like day to day.
Exactly.
Okay.
And while global warming,
Yeah.
which is that long-term heating of the Earth's surface,
Right.
is a major part of climate change.
Right.
Climate change itself is this much broader spectrum of interconnected changes.
So it's like the umbrella term.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I think grasping these fundamental distinctions that NASA lays out so clearly
Yeah.
is really the first step in understanding the
Yeah.
complexities and the significance of this whole issue.
Right. Because it is a complicated issue.
It is a complicated issue.
And there's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it.
But yeah, I think this is a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure. It really underscores
Yeah.
both the scale and the urgency of what's happening.
Right. And we can't lose sight of that.
No, absolutely not.
So here's a thought for you, listener,
Okay.
to kind of like chew on.
Yeah.
Now that you have this understanding of what climate change is
Right.
from NASA,
Yeah.
what piece of information from our conversation today
Yeah.
really resonates with you
Okay.
the most
Yeah.
about the magnitude of this
Mhm.
and the urgency of this?
The urgency.
What is it that really
Yeah.
stands out to you?
That's a really powerful question.
Yeah.
It invites a lot of personal reflection
Yeah.
and continued learning.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing for people to think about.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing
Uh,
this NASA article with us
Yeah.
and for going on this deep dive
you.
with us today to learn about climate change.
You've been great.
We hope this has helped clear some things up for you.
I hope so.
And
Thanks for having me.
thanks for being here.
Yeah.